Hi, everybody. This is SAAD. Many of you who follow my scientific work know about the principle of costly signaling, also known as the handicap principle or Zahavian signaling, which is also linked to this idea of honest signaling. The notion being that certain traits or behaviors evolve as costly signals precisely because you want to be able to assort the real top dogs, if you like, from the fakers. And the only way you can do that is if a signal that you're emitting is sufficiently costly that only those who are truly top could mean they have the best phenotypes, the best genes, and so on and so forth. So, from an evolutionary perspective, a costly signal can only be honest precisely if it is burdensome to the one who is emitting the signal. And this is also known as Zahavian signaling because Amos Zahavi, a Israeli ornithologist, demonstrated this exact phenomenon with Arabian babblers. I use Zahavian signaling and costly signaling and the handicap principle and honest signaling in my own work when I'm talking about certain forms of conspicuous consumption or, for example, large philanthropic acts as forms of costly signaling. So you can check out my 2007 book, The Evolutionary Basis of Consumption, if you'd like to know more about this evolutionary principle. Now, today I'd like to briefly connect this idea to uh, uh, a comparison between Kanye West and Matt Damon, one of whom is engaging in costly signaling, and the other is a pile of cowardice garbage. Uh, let's start with Kanye West. He exists in a world where everyone in his milieu, certainly in the entertainment industry, thinks one way. Donald Trump is a Nazi, Hillary Clinton was a wonderful person, Brett Kavanaugh is a gang rapist who's been raping people up and down the East Coast since he was 15, uh, and so on and so forth. So when he gets up, let's say the way he did on SNL this past Saturday, and makes the pronouncements that he does, that's having skin in the game, right? As Nassim Taleb has described in his book of that name. Skin in the game is exactly Zahavian signaling. Skin in the game is exactly costly signaling. It basically says it doesn't matter what the consequences of my acts are, what the consequences of my actions are. I will take them precisely because I'm willing to bear the cost, and therefore you can trust that at least I'm being intellectually honest. So in this case, the honest signaling is that he's truly demonstrating what's in his heart and in his mind, because otherwise there's a big cost to bear for taking that position. Now let's look at the model of intellectual cowardice, Matt Damon. He satirizes Brett Kavanaugh, for being unhinged, because most people, when they're accused, let us for a moment assume that this is a false accusation or set of false accusations, which we have certainly no reason to believe that it's not. So if you were accused of all the things that Brett Kavanaugh has been accused of, you would not lose your temper or become indignant because, bruh, you're a judge? What kind of moron actually thinks that judges lose their ability to feel like the rest of us simply because they're judges? He's not losing his cool and his temper in the pursuit of his judicial duties. He's fighting for his reputation, and therefore you might imagine that he might be even a lot more upset than whatever he's exhibited. And as I explained in social media, if the logic of, well, he's now too unhinged to actually sit as a Supreme Court justice were veridical, if that logic were veridical, then why don't we apply it to professors who apply for jobs? We will send out a press release that any candidate who comes to be interviewed in academia is a serial sadistic pedophile. And if the candidate responds in a way that suggests that they are not happy with that press release, well then, bruh, they don't have the even temperament to be professors in a classroom. We'll apply it also to neurosurgeons. We will release a global press release stating that the neurosurgeon who's applying for the job is a committed serial sadistic pedophile who has been preying on children. And if that neurosurgeon exhibits any sense of being indignant at that false accusation, well, bruh, how could we have him or her operate on people's brains? So it is so laughable, it is so cancerous as a view of how humans ought to behave that it leaves you baffled. But to return to Matt Damon, so Matt Damon went on SNL and did a skit where he's basically satirizing the real, genuine pain that Brett Kavanaugh is feeling, where he's literally fighting for his name, for his life, all that he's built. Well, what's the biggest capital that you have? It's your name. And of course, he's been accused of horrible things, so his whole life is potentially crumbling before him. And we don't yet know that he's guilty or not, but yet Matt Kavanaugh is mocking him, is satirizing him, when we don't know yet if this is a false accusation or not. Now, here's the beauty, and I have to send out a shout out to Greg Gutfeld. I was sitting earlier today watching The Five, Fox News, and he actually was going over this point regarding Matt Damon, where a year ago, I think, let me just look here. I'm looking at an article in the Daily Caller. I'll put the link to it in the description. He appeared on ABC's Popcorn with Peter Travers, and he explained, I'm reading here verbatim, and explained that in the years before the #MeToo movement, false allegations were often settled monetarily. But after the fall of Harvey Weinstein, all that changed. And now, quote from Matt Damon. This is where he's going to show how he would be violently indignant if someone wrongly accused him. So if you make the same claim to me today, he said, it would be scorched earth. Scorched earth. I don't care if it would cost me $10 million in court for 10 years. You are not taking my name from me. You are not taking my name and reputation from me. I've worked too hard for it. I've earned it. You can't just blow me up like that. So Matt Damon would engage in a scorched earth policy if you came after him wrongly and accused him of grotesque things wrongly. But the same guy who, a year ago, a year and a half, whatever, December 2017, made those comments, then mocks another human being who, for all we know, and certainly the indication suggests, has been falsely accused. That's cowardice. That's hypocrisy. That's a cancer of the human spirit. So I may not be a big fan of Kanye West, although a couple of his songs are not bad, but at least he walks like one big Zahavian signal, whereas this other schmuck, Matt Damon, is exactly what is wrong with intelligentsia. Have a good day, everybody.